Today, you'll learn about New Orleans, often called the most culturally unique city in the United States. Hi there, everyone. I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English with current events and trending topics. The audio goes a little bit slower than native speed, so you can understand every word. And if you'd like to get even more learning resources for this lesson, you can visit plainenglish.com/569. JR, the producer, has uploaded our full set of learning resources for today, plainenglish.com/569. But right here in the audio lesson, you'll learn all about New Orleans, Louisiana, the Big Easy, as they call it, the birthplace of jazz music, the home of Bourbon Street, and the host of Mardi Gras. In the second half of the lesson, I'll show you how to use the English phrasal verb wind through, and we have a song of the week from one of New Orleans' most famous residents. Let's get going. The Mississippi River is the second longest river in North America. It bisects the United States, running north to south. It played a pivotal role in the development of the interior of the country. Today, it's still a popular transportation route, moving grains, minerals, and other commodities. In its southern section, it winds through hardwood forests, then marshland, then sandy lowlands, before finally spilling into the Gulf of Mexico, where the land is so low that it's hard to tell the difference between the sandy islands and the sea. It is here that the French settled a city in the year 1718. They named it New Orleans after the Duke of Orleans. It was part of a territory called Louisiana. About half a century later, Louisiana became a Spanish colony. Another half century or so passed, and it became French again. But then, in 1803, Napoleon sold all French territory in North America to the United States. Louisiana became an American state in 1812. New Orleans today is a mixture of cultures, cuisines, traditions, and languages. It has its own dialect called New Orleans English. Louisiana Creole cuisine blends African, French, Spanish, and Caribbean traditions. The city is considered the birthplace of jazz music, and it's a popular location to film Hollywood movies. The architecture, especially in the historic French Quarter, has an old-world charm. But it's a wonder the city even exists. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina directly hit the low-lying city. The levees and flood walls that protected the city from the mighty Mississippi River failed, releasing a mass of river water into the city. Over 80% of the city's area flooded. Although most people had evacuated, over 1,500 people still died in the floods. Thousands more took shelter in the football stadium or the convention center. This was considered the worst engineering failure in American history at the time. Tens of thousands of people simply never returned to the city. The devastation was too much. The NBA basketball team left for Oklahoma City and stayed there. People wondered why anyone would want to live in New Orleans after such an ordeal. Before the hurricane, the city's population was 454,000. In 2006, it was just 208,000. The population had fallen by more than half. The city had to justify its existence, or people would simply not come back. Luckily, the French Quarter was spared the worst of the damage. The population eventually recovered. It's smaller today than before the hurricane, but not by much. During the recovery, the city doubled down on its history, its culture, and tourism. The flood walls were rebuilt, and New Orleans today is considered the most culturally unique city in the United States. Food is one reason. Gumbo is a thick stew poured over rice. Common ingredients are chicken, sausage, celery, peppers, onions, and okra. Jambalaya is similar, combining rice, meat, and spices. A muffaletta is a sandwich with deli meat, cheese, and olive dressing. A po' boy is a sandwich on French bread. Seafood like shrimp is the most popular ingredient. If you like seafood, try oysters and crawfish too. Crawfish are a local specialty. They're shellfish, a little like lobsters, but they live in shallow fresh water. You can have them boiled, sautéed, baked, or fried. At breakfast time, try shrimp and grits. Grits are like oatmeal, only made from ground corn and a lot of butter. If that's not your thing, you can always get a shrimp omelet. It sounds weird putting seafood in eggs, but I'll tell you, it's delicious. Got a sweet tooth? Beignets are French donuts with powdered sugar on top. Pralines are a type of candy made with southern pecans. You'll need a full stomach to enjoy the city's famed Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street is in the French Quarter, the architecturally distinctive neighborhood with buildings dating back to the colonial period. Though it's named the French Quarter, most of the architecture dates to the city's time as a Spanish, not a French colony. Bourbon Street is known for its music and its parties. It's one of the few places in the U.S. where you can openly carry an alcoholic drink on the street. The weather is nice, so the doors and windows of the bars and restaurants are often open. Walk down the street until you hear a band you like. Enjoy the band for a while, and if you get bored, just take your drink with you and continue your walk. I should warn you, New Orleans is considered a party destination. It's a common destination for bachelor and bachelorette parties, graduation parties, spring break, and weekends away. But if drinking isn't your thing, you can avoid the crowds and visit the city's art galleries, historic mansions, antique shops, boutique hotels, parks, gardens, and more. Not far from the city, you can explore nature preserves, swamps, and wetlands. For museums, you can visit the Historic New Orleans Collection, a history museum in a 2-century-old mansion, or try the World War II Museum. Why is there a World War II museum in New Orleans? The boats used by the Allies to land on the sandy beach in Normandy, France, they were invented in New Orleans. Music fans always have something to do in New Orleans. In addition to the nightly music in the French Quarter, the city is home to music festivals of all kinds. A literary festival honors the playwright Tennessee Williams, who lived in the city when he wrote his famous play, A Streetcar Named Desire. But the biggest cultural festival of all is Mardi Gras, or Fat Tuesday. It's a 2-week celebration that concludes the day before Ash Wednesday, usually late February and early March. There's a parade every day of the festival, each one more elaborate than the last. 1 million people visit New Orleans each year to celebrate Mardi Gras. I remember Hurricane Katrina, the city was underwater. New Orleans was under the water. There is no other way to describe it. There was a real question about whether anyone would ever want to live there again. And a lot of people decided that they did not, or they could not. But the city built back smaller, and it's a great place to visit if you want to see a totally unique place in the United States. One more thing. Wikipedia is funny. It often talks about things in a plain, dry manner, even if they're kind of funny. So here's a description of one Mardi Gras tradition. I'm reading it straight from Wikipedia. Wearing less clothing than considered decent in other contexts during Mardi Gras has been documented since 1889. So there you have it, another New Orleans tradition going back more than a century. Wearing less clothing than considered decent in other contexts. Today, I'm going to tell you about the phrasal verb wind through. When we use this phrasal verb, the subject, the thing doing the action, is always a path or a route. You never say that a person winds through. Never say a car winds through. Never say an animal winds through. Instead, you say a hiking trail winds through, a road winds through, or, as I said today, a river winds through. So you need 2 ingredients to use wind through. First, you need something that takes a twisting and curving form. A road can take a twisting and curving form if there are lots of small turns. The second ingredient is you need the surroundings, or you need the environment. In the sentence, the road winds through the dense forest, we have both ingredients. The road is the thing that takes a twisting and curving form, and the dense forest is the surroundings, the environment in which it happens. So we put those 2 ingredients together and we say the road winds through the dense forest. If you look at a map of the United States and you zoom way out, you might think the Mississippi River goes straight down the middle of the country. But zoom way in and look at it, especially in the southern part of the river. It doesn't go in a straight line from Memphis, Tennessee, to the Gulf of Mexico. It twists and it turns and it curves and it bends. The photo that is on the transcript of this expression, to see it, go to plainenglish.com/569 and then click on wind through. The photo is a great aerial shot of the Mississippi River winding through the farmland of the southern United States. Now, in the southern third especially, the river winds through a few different environments. It winds through the dense hardwood forest. That means as the river twists and turns, the environment around it is hardwood forest. Farther south, the Mississippi River winds through the marshland. The marshland is very wet, soft, and muddy with lots of vegetation. Then the environment changes yet again, and the river winds through sandy lowlands. And down here, the land and the water are constantly changing. The islands are soft and ever shifting. Zoom way in on Google Maps, right where the Mississippi River meets the Gulf of Mexico, the land and the water merge into one. So in that example, the river winds through the forest, then it winds through the marshland, then it winds through the sandy lowlands. It goes in a twisting and curving pattern through all these environments. And notice, the river winds through, not a person, not a boat, not a fish, not a turtle. The river winds through. When they first laid the railroad tracks connecting the east and west of North America, the railroads wanted to take the most direct path. Through most of the center of the continent, the flat part, train tracks are pretty straight. But when you get to the mountains, the train tracks wind through the mountains. Because of the geography, it was not always possible to build train tracks in a straight line. So the result is that train tracks wind through mountain passes. The tracks are the path. The path has twists and turns and curves, and the environment is the mountains. So the train tracks wind through the mountains. Have you ever driven on a road that has hairpin turns? That's a way to get down a steep mountain. You go left to right, you do a sharp turn, you go right to left, sharp turn, do it again, all the way down the hill. The first time I saw that was in Italy, Tuscany it was. I was a kid and we were on a class trip. The road winds through the hills of Tuscany. If you're on a hike, you might take a hiking path that winds through the forest if that path takes a twisting and turning route. Today's song of the week is When the Saints Go Marching In by Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong is a jazz musician from New Orleans, and he took New Orleans style music and popularized it around the world. He's probably New Orleans' most famous resident, and they even named the airport after him. JR picked What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong for lesson 179, the very first time we did a song of the week. So we need to pick a different one today. And today's is When the Saints Go Marching In. This was a religious hymn that dates back to the 1800s, but Louis Armstrong recorded it in 1938, and it's one of his most famous songs. It refers to the desire to go to heaven. When the Saints Go Marching In by Louis Armstrong is the song of the week today. And that's all for today's Plain English. Thanks so much for making Plain English a part of your learning routine. Remember to check us out on Instagram. Follow the account, like the content, leave comments. It will help Plain English reach more people. We are at Plain English Pod on Instagram. We'll be back next Monday. See you then.